welcome to TOCCA Talks, my absolute, um, I don't know what to call you because you are such an important person to me, my acting coach, life coach. Um, I mean, one of the most wisest, warmest, most open, beautiful people I know on this planet,
Oh,
Stephen Anderson. I am so excited to have you on my TOCCA Talk. So,
I'm
welcome.
delighted to be here. Thank you.
So we met in Los Angeles,
Hmm.
where you have been a working actor in Hollywood for over 40 years, and you've been teaching acting, as far as I know, for over 25 years.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we met at one of your weekly acting classes, and we've been
Well, that's
working.
right. That was you were in there before the workshops.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I was brought in by another actress called Sarah. And she was in one of my music videos and she recommended me to come to your class. And I just went there with her one evening. I think it was on Tuesdays or Wednesdays or
Yeah.
something like that. And
Tuesday.
I remember the first time I walked into that little theater and I was so scared. I was so nervous and so terrified because I'm like, I have no idea what's going to happen here. So, do you remember the first time we met?
Yes, I remember. It was a Tuesday because that was my
Oh,
main class.
mm-hmm,
So that's easy for me to remember.
mm-hmm.
And I believe it was Sarah Egan,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and I remember that you were kind of a deer in the headlights, and
Yep.
and and uh, but trying so hard to stay on top of it all,
Mm-hmm.
which I loved. It's coming into any new process is scary.
Yeah.
Um, and when you came in, it's like most new people coming into my workshops is I work from such a place that is so different and so non-traditional and non-conformist that it freaks a lot of people out because they can't they have not I don't give them anything to hang on to, which is
Nope.
kind of the idea is we want to let go of everything
Mm.
when we work, or we can't be fully who we are if we're trying to hang on to a reference point because it stands in the way of us being authentically human,
Mm.
of expressing from not knowing. And that's what an audience, I think that's what an audience seeks. That's what they want. They think of it this way: if someone was doing a film about your story, your life story, and if you think about all the things you've done in your life that you haven't told anybody, that you wouldn't want anybody to know, those little secret things,
Mm.
um, if if an actor comes in to play you, it's their job to find out what all those things are, to find
Mm.
out that's because those we all have those secrets, we all have those things we don't want anyone to know, and that because we're afraid we'll be judged, we'll be you know banished from the tribe, and so we feel isolated, we feel very lonely, and I think the audience is looking for connection.
Mm.
And when they see on the screen or they see on the stage someone who's revealing from a real place, from that authenticity, their own humanity, their own foolishness, their own embarrassment, um, they feel less lonely because they feel, oh yeah, that's me. Yeah, I know that. I can relate to that. I feel connected.
Mm.
So I think it's so vital that we, as actors, find ways to release from thinking, release from control, release from hanging on to it,
Mm.
so that we respond from our bodies,
Right.
that our body is the first level of awareness. Everything comes through the body first,
Mm.
that we have an experience in our body and then we have thoughts about it. The thoughts are always just a recording device of what the experience was. And therefore, your thinking mind has never been present. And
Mm.
actors in the beginning, have a hard time with that. It's like, wait a minute, I'm present. No, your body's present. Your body is always present. But your thinking mind is never present. It's either in the past or the future.
Mm.
You have an experience in the moment. You have an experience in your body, and then you have a thought about it. And
Mm.
then the thoughts in the past, and then you project on the future. No, I don't want to do that again. So I'll remember that. I don't know. So you were like everybody else coming in was okay. I know what I'm doing. You know, I've got a lot of experience.
Mm.
I'm going to hang on to that, and then that floor gets taken away, and there's quicksand, and then you become a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, it was terrifying. I remember that very, very well. But I think it also had to do with, all my previous training and being a musical theater performer. And a lot of the work that I had been doing was in, big shows like Phantom of the
Hmm.
Opera, or
Hmm.
where you have very set frames for what you are supposed to do and not do. Um, but the funny thing is that once we started working together and I started sort of implementing your way of um, approaching acting, even though it was scary, I felt like it also in a way became easier because I didn't have to like plan or
Right.
remember things, or because once you connect with your body and just let things sort of authentically happen to you, you
Hmm.
don't really have to do anything anymore.
That's correct.
Mm.
Acting is not doing.
Right.
Acting is being.
Mm.
And the more you try to make something happen, the shallower and the less authentic it will be.
Mm.
Who was it? Oh, I can't remember. I think it was Christian Bale who said that. No, it was De Niro. He said every time I try to take a preconceived idea onto the set, it never works. It always fails. Always. That I have to come forth and just let whatever's going to happen happen. That doesn't mean that I didn't do my homework. It doesn't mean that I'm not coming to the set or to the stage with lots of ideas. And and there's a big difference between stage and screen.
Mm.
Some of them very, very obvious, and some of them very subtle. But either way, you're still coming with your authenticity.
Mm.
That even in an extremely rehearsed piece, all you're doing in rehearsing a play or rehearsing a musical is you're locking down form. You're locking down blocking. You're locking down the work you've done on the music and on the performance itself. But it's all form. It's not expression.
Mm.
So you learn the form and then know it so well because you have the weeks to work on it
Yeah.
that that's what you rely on. That's what you trust. But then inside of that form, you have to let go.
Yeah.
And that's where the humanity fills the space. It's no longer no different than a concert pianist who works on Rachmaninoff's third piano concerto for months. First of all, learning the piece and then and then putting it into memory so that once they are on stage in the concert, there's no thought. There's only because the form is there.
Mm.
They release themselves and their expression comes out through that music, and you are moved, not somewhat by the music, but mostly by the humanity that comes through the music. Because you can hear someone play that same piece very technically correct and not be moved by it at all, but go, oh, that was very pretty. That was a
Mm.
nice piece of music. But your heart won't be touched because the humanity's not there.
Right.
So in screen, you have form that you're committing to, but it's immediate form. On stage you have weeks to rehearse and
Mm.
you build that form and then you rely on that form and let go inside of it, and you're going to do the same form every night.
Yeah.
But on screen, it's we don't call it blocking, we call it staging.
Mm.
And we stage for the shot, and each shot's different staging even though it's the same scene. And and so I myself, in the way we work in our workshops, in the process, is I'm not relying on weeks of form built up. I have to rely on my own humanity because I can always be real. I have
Mm,
tremendous rehearsal and experience at being real, at being a human. So,
mm,
regardless of what the piece is, it doesn't mean I don't do the homework. I have to know the life of this person. I have to explore all the circumstances of this person's life and these relationships.
mm,
But each time I experience a relationship, let's say in an improv, I'm taken on a little journey, or when I'm monologuing out loud about it, from a character's point of view, or
mm.
I'm journaling, or I'm just looking at the text over and over, looking for what did I miss? What did I miss? Why am I saying this word? I personally look at script only for circumstance, not
Mm.
on how to play something, because
Right.
again, I'm not relying on a long rehearsal period where I can look into those things. So I have to trust that I put all of this information in me, all this experience. It has to be experience. It can't be just, oh, I'm going to run down the list of my backstory.
Mm.
No, I have to go in and explore physically, meaning my body has to feel it,
Right.
the backstory. And there's many different tools to be able to do that. So that I have an experience of this person and the experience of these relationships. And once I have that, I can put it into any material.
Mm.
I can get new material that morning. We're going to shoot and go, oh, okay, because I'm solid in the being of who these people are, or who this person is. And I
Right.
can walk into any situation and let them live. But
Mm.
in both situations, whether it's on stage and you're trusting the form that is rehearsal, you're still releasing and letting go inside. Every night is different.
Yeah.
And then same thing is I have a different form that I'm letting go into on the screen. So in both times you have to be able to trust your being to come forth within whatever the form is. For
Yeah.
me, art is art is art. That the artistic process is the same. For me, it's a life process. I don't live my life any differently than I live my art
Mm.
because they're not. I don't see them as separate.
Right.
I do the exact same process teaching as I do acting. We
Mm.
came into this interview. I had all sorts of fear this morning. Oh, what am I going to talk about? That never goes away for the rest of your life. You always have that fear of, okay, we're going to go into it. Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? But I also have a little voice of experience in my body, in my back of my mind goes, okay, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be scared. That brings tremendous energy.
Yeah.
And if you can let go of the conversation and just feel the energy of fear, ooh, it's powerful. And then you
Mm.
can go into this interview and this conversation
Mm.
and let it go wherever it's going to want to go. And so that's the same process I'm asking actors to do. It's the same process I raised my daughter with. It's the
Mm.
same process I climb rocks with.
Mm.
It's a living process of letting go of what I think should be and going with what is.
Yeah. It's really difficult though.
It is very difficult. And it's something, and it's, thank God it's difficult because if it weren't difficult, we would give it up.
Yeah.
I think anything you can really truly master, you'll get bored with. That is the activities in my life that I've committed to now, and they become tighter and tighter as I get older. Because I think there's this when you're young, there's a world of possibility, and you choose all sorts of things and try all sorts of things and find what fits for you, and so it becomes narrower
Mm.
until you reach into an hourglass channel where you eliminate possibility and you take those few things and drop down into options.
Mm.
So you've limited possibility, but now within those things you really are focusing on, there's so many options and there's so many expansions within those things. So I look at those things and they are all things that I know that I will never get to the end. There's not an end to acting process, to becoming a better actor
Mm.
or of any kind of art. It's always a progressive thing. There is no end. And there's no end as growing as a human.
Right.
And when we learn something that we come to the end of it, we got, okay, I got it. I can do it in my sleep. There's no growth.
Yeah.
There's no movement. We lose the joy.
Yeah.
The joy in life is growth. Yes, it's a bitch. It's hard, and it always will be. But
Yeah.
but if we can get past that one thing, if we can go, okay, I accept that it's difficult. And it's difficult because it's difficult, not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just
Right.
difficult. And you will do this,
Mm.
but it will be a constant growth cycle, and
Yeah,
you'll
and
fall.
I feel like it's something that you, I mean, for me at least, it's, I have to make a conscious decision to keep pushing myself that way.
Yeah.
Because when things get difficult or scary or hard, I mean, it just doesn't come supernaturally to me, whether we talk about life or
Hmm.
acting or
Hmm.
anything. You have to just decide that, okay, Stephen has told me step into the breakdown, and so it's like, I don't want to, but like
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and then you just have to jump and do it.
Yeah. And when you're able to do that,
Mm,
what happens is you move from, how do I say this? Fear is fear. Fear will be with you the rest of your life because it's human.
mm,
You can't eliminate things that are human from your existence because that's what you are. So if you succumb to fear, you become paralyzed and you shut down and you back away and you believe the conversation that your thinking mind is creating based on the fear. Because remember, your thinking mind is is ego, is the voice of ego. And I love ego. There's nothing wrong with ego. We don't want to make it the bad guy. But ego's job, its primary job, is to protect you, is to
mm.
keep you safe, keep you from dying. And whether it be the big death or whether it be just daily embarrassments. And it was really about we're going, you're going to go into the fear or release the fear. Go because you have two choices to go. You can either let it shut you down, or you can because you're going to be fearful. So
Mm.
it comes to how are you going to deal with the fear?
Right.
Are you willing to, as you said, I hate it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it
Mm.
because then the resistance is irrelevant because you're going to do it. It doesn't matter how much you hate it. It doesn't matter how much you have resistance, how much you scream and yell and kick. If you do it, it will alter. Once you step through the fear, it becomes freedom on the other side.
Mm.
So I'm all in favor. I don't. It's I say it in class all the time. I don't care how you feel about it. I just want you to do it. Take
Right.
take your fear and go into it. That's fine. Be afraid. That's okay. Scream, cry. I don't care. Just do it, and that will transform into something else because the tears and the screaming and the kicking are nothing more than ego afraid of dying.
Mm.
And when we step through it, we actually have an ego death.
Mm.
And on the other side is freedom because we're not afraid of it anymore. And on the other side is that beautiful experience of connection with with us and everything else that is. The thing that scares us is separation. That we are afraid of being separate, and because we are separate, because we have free prefrontal cortex, I am me, you are you, we disconnect and from the rest of the universe, and we so desperately crave being connected. And the only way, that's why we're constantly searching for what's the meaning of life, because I'm not feeling it. We all want to feel that connection. And when you step through your fear on the other side, is connection.
Mm.
It's why it's so glorious. It's why it's so fulfilling. Because it's one thing I believe that we're all searching for. I'm going to start, I think, with Let It Be True.
Mm.
So let's just talk about Let It Be True for a minute. Now, Let It Be True is a tool. It's something that happens anyway, but we're using it as a tool. And a Let It Be True, I came up with that name because we as humans, our physical being, we have two parts of us really. We have our being, which is an organism. It's a an organic organism, no different than an amoeba or a fish or a dog. It's an organism that responds to stimuli. If you poke an anemone with your finger, it will contract. No thought process involved there. That's just the body responding to stimuli. So our body does the same thing. It doesn't know, our bodies don't know the difference between what's real and what's not real.
Mm.
It just responds to the suggestions we feed to it. So we say we're walking down a dark alley in the middle of the night in a very bad part of Stockholm. And we're in this alley and we know we have to get through it because there's really bad people behind us that are following us into the alley. And so we're on alert. And as we're moving forward, a box moves and light comes out from behind the box. And your mind, your imagination says, oh my God, somebody's there. And your body immediately responds as if it were true. Your mouth goes dry, hair in your back of the neck stands up, you begin to sweat, and your heart rate goes up. It's your body responding to the suggestion that there's a threat there. And then a little puppy comes out. And your body has a completely different experience because your mind says, oh no, it's no problem. It's just a dog.
It's a puppy.
So, yeah, it's a puppy. And your body goes, your body deflates, you go, oh God. And your body is just responding authentically to the suggestions that your mind is feeding to it. And that's the way the human works. All humans work that way. So what we've done with the process is go, why reinvent the wheel, as so many techniques do? They try to come up with a new way of being human. Is let's just look at how we operate and utilize that as a tool. So I took the phrase, let it be true, because that's what we're doing in the alley, going, let it be true, there's a threat there, and your body responds. If you commit to an imaginary circumstance and you go, okay, let it be true that he really isn't good for me. He really does want to hurt me. If you say, let it be true, and you commit to it, your body will start to respond as if it were true, because it doesn't know the difference. It will take what you give it as long as you commit to it. So let it be true has become the cornerstone tool of the Actorswork process, so that we build everything around let it be trues, or we use let it be trues to create scene structural tools by building let it be trues. Because you can't play it. You can't play a tool. You can't play, let's say, containment.
Right.
You know, that's a tool. We're going to contain this. I'm not going to let that energy out. I'm not going to scream and yell. I'm going to contain all that energy. And that's a tool. I can't play the tool or it's two-dimensional. But I can say, all right, let it be true. I'm not going to give him the satisfaction to let him see me sweat. He can just sit there and eat it. Now I have an action. Now I have something to do that causes me to contain.
Right.
So the containment as a tool is a byproduct, but it all comes from let it be true. Because what a let it be true is just a made up circumstance that doesn't contradict what the author has given us. The author gives us given circumstances. We have to go through and find out what those given circumstances are, what the author is implying with those given circumstances, and what the author's intent is. Because everything we do has to line up with that intent. We can't contradict the author, which is not our script. And I'm a firm believer that as actors, we serve the text. It's not our. You want to create your own piece, great. If you're doing a play, if you're doing a screenplay, then you're committing to bring life to the text that is written. That's your job. But I can, in bringing life and depth to that character, I can make up any circumstance that doesn't contradict those givens. Because when we look at, let's say, a scene, and I'm going to say this, the scene is the working medium of the actor, not the play, not the screenplay. Yes, we're going to read the whole script, and it will give us information about each scene. But the scene is what we work up. The scene is what we shoot.
Mm.
And all the scenes come together to make a film. But we focus on the scene. Okay, so each scene is just a sliver in a character's life. Most scenes in a screenplay are a couple minutes at the most. You very seldomly see scenes longer than 5 minutes. So let's say it is 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes out of this person's life. And look at myself, there's a good decades and decades of life before me, and there's decades and decades to come, hopefully. And that all that life can be explored. Aspirations, inspirations, desires, the future, all the things that have happened to us in the past. Those are all things, as well as what's happening right now. We can make up circumstances. And there's all different kinds of let it be true. we can do a proximity let it be true. So I'm going to come up with something that's an event, a proximity event, something that just happened just before the scene started, that I witnessed. That proximity meaning it's really close to the event that we're shooting. And it's an event. So I'm about to come into the scene, to talk to my wife, to forgive her. The scene is about me forgiving her for thinking that she had an affair. But I let it be true that just before I came into the room, I heard her on the phone. And I heard her talking to some man. And I heard her telling her how much she loves him. And how that they will be together eventually. Now I'm going to come into the scene. I just saying that, I can feel it.
Yeah.
That's a let it be true. That's a proximity event, let it be true. There's all different kinds of let it be trues.
Right.
But they are the driving force
But
of the process of being, just to finish the thought, they are the process of that will lead to you expressing authentically within form.
Right. But what I think is so interesting when it comes to what I've learned from you with acting, or the difference between acting on in a play, in a stage production, versus acting for film and TV, where you have the opportunity, hopefully, to do a lot of different takes, is that and maybe that's a way you can also work in rehearsals, exploring your character and exploring where you want to go with a character, but is that you can switch, or you're supposed to switch your let it be trues before every new take, or before every like, or maybe you're not supposed to change it every time. But what I'm trying to say is that when we've worked together, usually you throw something like that phone conversation, like I've overheard this conversation, and then we do the scene, and then you'll bring me backstage again. It's like, okay, let's do it again. And this time, this and this and this are your new let it be truths, and you have to do it again. And that's a really, really powerful tool for exploring what will happen. I remember a scene from one of the workshops. I wasn't in the scene. I don't know if you remember this, but it was a couple, and it was something similar, like maybe she had cheated on him or whatever, and his, I can't remember now, but it was so powerful what happened, because he was supposed to tell her how much he loved her, and he didn't know that she had been cheating, and so he just wanted them to get back together. And for some reason, you had given him a let it be true that just made him, like, because he had prepared the scene, like we do, like he was going to go in and like just, I love you, stay with, he had like this whole preconceived idea of what the scene was going to be. And you gave him a let it be true that made him like completely break down, but he still had to say all these nice
Right.
words to her because that was the script. So it
Yeah.
can really change your performance or what you put out there.
I believe that performance is a sacred event, that I don't touch it. It's sacred. I mean, it's way beyond me, because anything I try to push a performance or make a performance happen, it's going to be false,
Mm.
because it's going to be pretended. It's going to be tried to be brought into existence. It's not authentic. So our job is not is not to read the script, understand the script, what the author's message or story is, learn that message, and then plan how we're going to do that, to deliver that message, and what emotions we're going to have, and what actions we're going to take, and then deliver that message to the audience. It's first of all, it's redundant. The author's already doing it. You can read that script in a library or on the computer screen and have this and get all of it. Get whatever emotional value is or message is coming from the author is in the writing. You can read a script and weep
Mm.
because you're moved by it. That exists there. So there's no reason to give that same message to the audience. It's already there. So we want to go in and bring life to to that text that isn't already there. So then we bring in tools like contrary choice. I will see the emotional value that's in the writing, and I will then go, well, that's there. I don't need to play that. And so I'll go against it. And I'll build let it be truths that create the opposite reaction.
Mm.
As you're discussing about the man coming in, and now he knows that she's cheating, let's say, which he hadn't planned before. He was going to come in, tell her how much he loved her. Well, that's in the script. He does love her. That's a given circumstance. We're not going against that, but we're now adding the additional information that he knows that she cheated. So now he comes in with that, and that's informing how he has to say the same words.
Mm.
So instantly, when you introduce another value, another emotional value to the text, you're instantly, if you play the emotional value that exists in the writing, you're delivering the same emotional value and you're paralleling what's happening. When you bring in an additional emotional value, a state of being, you instantly create depth. And you're still lining up with the intent of the author, but now there's depth that the audience can't sit back and be spoon fed because you're giving them the same thing the text is giving them. Now there's all sorts of contrary and conflicting information that the audience is now on the edge of their seats, which they should be, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to interpret what the story is, because it's the audience's job to be the interpreter.
Right.
They're the storyteller. The audience is the storyteller, not the actor. And that's the first thing actors have to get over, is they're not the storyteller. They are living in the life in these circumstances, and a story gets told, but they're not telling the story.
Mm.
It's like a wonderful thing I saw in LA once. It was before a class, and I was outside the Sidewalk Studio Theater, if you remember that place,
Mm-hmm.
and getting a coffee from Priscilla's. And I saw this guy trying to put a quarter into the meter.
Mm.
He wouldn't take it. And at first he was just pushing it. And then after a while, he was getting adamant about it. And then he started hitting the thing and he started screaming at it. And then he kicks it and then he yells and he throws the quarter at it and he walks away. And I'm watching this guy and I'm going, oh, wow, this guy is not having a bad day. He's having a bad life. I'm
Mm,
looking at the action was just putting a quarter into the meter.
mm,
But he was influenced by so many other things in his life, so many let it be truths. There was so much going on, and it was all coming out in frustration and anger that was pent up into this thing. He was not trying to think about what story he was telling. All
no.
he was trying to do was put a quarter into the machine, but he was influenced by everything that was going on in his being.
Mm,
And therefore, a story gets told. Our action is just put the quarter in the machine, affected by the let it be truths that you apply.
yeah.
And if you let it be true, your body will respond as if it is.
Mm,
And that's how we tap into our authenticity. And each take will be different. People try to cry. I get asked that question more than any other is how, but how do you, when a director says, I want you to cry in this scene, or I want you to cry in this line, how do I do that? And I go, I don't know. I don't know how to do it. I don't, I can create some powerful let it be truths and I might cry, I might not cry. I don't know.
mm,
But it would be powerful, whatever I do. It'll
right.
be real, it'll be authentic.
Mm.
It's not your job, as far as I'm concerned. And I've confronted directors on that because they don't know what they're doing, as far as I'm concerned. Because they don't know. They're trying to force a moment to happen.
Mm,
I want tears on this line because that'll be powerful. I see it in my head. So that's not authentic. Even if you can cry, the audience go, oh, wow, wow, look, they're crying. You see it on soap operas all the time.
mm,
But it doesn't move you,
no.
it doesn't break you up because it's not authentic. We know it's authentic. As humans, we know how to be human more than anything else. So we know when someone blowing smoke up our butt, when someone's pretending, we don't feel the authentic. We may not know it intellectually, but we don't feel it
Mm,
because it's not tapping on a level below ego, our humanity, which
right.
we all can relate to.
Like one of the most powerful things that I learned from your classes, or that I experienced, I would say rather, is a scene. Well, it was an exercise and I can't remember, but what happened was that me and my scene partner, we ended up just sitting quietly, not doing anything for minutes. I mean, it felt like an hour, it probably wasn't, but where I had to force myself not to do anything just for the sake of doing something, but
Yeah.
to rest in the moment and rest in the fact that nothing was happening. And then when we talked about it afterwards, and everyone else in the class were supposed to talk about what they saw, I mean, we had like 30 different stories about what happened in that scene, and we didn't do anything.
Yeah. That's because the story, again, as I said a little bit earlier, the story is told by the audience to themselves. You have 30 people watching the same thing, they'll get 30 different stories because everybody's different and everybody's been through different experience. Everybody has different biases. Everybody has different fears, different beliefs. So they perceive it differently. We don't see the world as it is. We see it, we see it through a sieve of conversations that we tell ourselves.
Mm,
So we never see the world as it is. It's always through this sieve of our belief systems. Um, so the story is always told in the silence. That's really important. The story is told in the silence because that's when the audience has to figure out what's going on in that silence. So they have to interpret. And and they for me, the dialogue is just is what the dialogue supports the silence. It gives a point of reference to interpret the silence, not the other way around. Not that's because people who actors who feel they have to they hang on to the dialogue and it's the scene is about is about the dialogue, then they're afraid to be in the silence because they want to hang on to the dialogue, so they want to be able to keep speaking,
mm,
so they're very uncomfortable in being silent. But if you roll that the other way and realize, no, being is where the story lives, and you sitting in your being and then letting that being come out in the dialogue reflects the being, not the being reflecting the dialogue. And that's when the audience has the opportunity to interpret. Because if an actor indulges in their own feelings on stage, they rob the audience from being able to feel.
Yeah.
It's not our job to tell a story, and it's not our job as actors to feel anything.
But
And yet
what
we
if
want
that,
to feel it.
right, but what if that happens though? Because, for example, playing Francesca in Bridges of Madison County, that was my first like big role in Sweden, and it was my first big leading lady musical role after working with you for several years. And so I felt like I went into that experience with all the tools and all the stuff that I've learned from you. But now when you're talking about indulging in feelings, because sometimes like that's a very, very emotional story, and a very, like, she goes through so much. And at the end of the show, it ends with, you know, old Francesca getting a letter from Robert, and she goes to the bridge and she reads this letter and finds out that he has died. And, you know, and then the last song happens where she sort of remembers their time together, and also talks about why she made the choices that she made, etc. And every single night I would have to fight my own emotions to even be able to sing the song, because I was so moved by the music, the lyrics, the story. And but I mean, and as soon as I finished like the last note of the song, I mean, even in the song where there were like, you know, a couple of bars between verses, I would sob and then just pull myself together and keep singing. And then when the last note was sung, I would completely break down, you know, because I couldn't hold it in anymore. But
yeah, how wonderful.
yeah, but that's not then indulging in feelings.
No, it's not indulging. You see, indulging is when it's coming from, you know, ego. It's planning, you know, it's planning an anger. It's planning an emotional response.
Mm,
Um, a natural, authentic emotional response is beautiful.
mm,
It's wonderful. There's a When I say, I'm glad you brought that up because people will misinterpret it.
mm,
I'm not saying, oh, don't be emotional. No, no, no. The fact of the being is the more authentic you are, the more you're allowing the emotions to happen on their own,
mm,
and they may be completely contrary to where you thought they were going to be. That guy that you referenced he's coming in to say how much he loves her and he's crying.
mm,
You know, that doesn't seem to compute, but first of all, that contrasting emotion is incredibly powerful to the
mm,
audience, and because you got the author's emotional value and you have the actor's emotional value, but when you allow that, you're going to get so many impulses, so many firing impulses, that becomes the art of you waiting and making choices in the moment which one you're going to go with. And so
mm,
there's a emotion from this, and there's emotion from that, and there's anger, and you're kind of wading through it. I like to use the analogy of being a surfer on a wave,
mm,
and you're cutting down that wave, and you don't know where you're going to cut and how you're going to cut. It depends on where the wave takes you, but you're riding it. And acting from authenticity is a ride. You're just riding wherever it takes you, and you're making choices in the moment as it happens. It's
mm,
not choices beforehand that you're going to play out, but choices that occur to you as it's happening that you choose along the way.
mm,
Because that's what we do in our own lives. Again, it's taking the way we live as humans and using it as a process.
mm.
We do that all day long. We make choices as things happen, you know. Oh, there's wind blowing, shut the windows. We you know, and we get excited and oh my God, something's happening. We we improv through our lives. We think that we have control over our lives. We have no control over our lives. We just respond to it as it shows up. We
Right.
think we start out the day and go, oh, I got this day figured out. I'm going to be doing this and this and this and this and this. First of all, those things never happen the way you think they're going to happen. And then all these other things you didn't plan to happen. And all these other interactions and all these other emotions. And we respond to them. That's what living is improvising a response of what's coming up, depending on what the stimuli is, what the environment is. And that's what we're doing in theater, is we're responding authentically within imaginary circumstances, but treating them as if they were true, and then going wherever they take us. Because there's every time you do a scene, you don't know what that other actor is going to give you. One scene they may be smiling and laughing, and the next time you do the scene, they're crying. And you have a multitude of things to stimulate you if you're not trying to perform.
Right.
So indulgence is when you're trying to perform predetermined choices. And then you rob the audience from being able to feel, because you're not being authentic, and they can't feel it. So no, by all means, emotion's great. I'm all for emotion, but it's not the be all end all.
Right.
Actors have a tendency, again, if they can't cry, then they're not a good actor. That's just nonsense. Okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I'll say it. There are seven responses that humans have to environment. And that's all. We only have 7. And we have a combination of all of them, but there is emotion, feeling, sensation or senses, thought, action, imagination, and memory. Everything that you come encounter with in your life, you will trigger one or a combination of those 7 responses. That's how the human responds to everything. Right. So that's our vocabulary, as far as I'm concerned. To live authentically, we're listening to how our body is responding in those 7 ways. And that experience is what we feed into the dialogue. So therefore, the dialogue has no meaning to the actor whatsoever, ever. I never look to dialogue for meaning until it actually comes out of your mouth in the heat of the moment. Right. With that response, then it has meaning. But, every time you say it with a different response, it will have a different meaning.
Yeah.
That the words are a reflection of the being, not the other way around. So I hope I cleared that up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, one of my really cool experiences doing Francesca and working on that piece with, the tools that you've given me is that I, for the first time, I think, would allow myself to respond in whichever way it just happened on that given performance. Like, there were several scenes or parts in that musical where you would, have the preconceived idea that, oh, she would break down here, or she would cry here, or that would happen here. And it was really freeing to walk into it like, whatever happens, happens. A lot of the times I would cry. But, some nights or some performances, there was a completely different response, or things happen on stage, like we had it, a scene where we're driving in a car together and we didn't have a real car. So we were sitting on like wooden boxes and he was just holding, like a steering wheel. And one evening someone had, one of the stagehands had put that box, a little bit off where it should be standing. And so he, came to sit down and everything fell over. And we both just started laughing, like there was no way of stopping it. But instead of like old Viktoria, would go like, oh my God, we're just ruining like we're ruining everything. This is horrible. Instead, we allowed it to be,
Yes.
and afterwards, we had people come and see the show, like relatives or friends, every single performance. And, they were like, oh, was that, meant to happen? Was that supposed to happen? Because we didn't, like, we allowed whatever like authentic feeling that happened to happen within the play or within these characters. So it still worked.
It'll always work if
Yeah.
you are truthful with your response.
Mm.
The whole table can fall down,
Right.
and if you stay involved and deal with the table, it will actually tell a story.
Right. But in a
Um,
show, like Phantom of the Opera, you can't, start laughing in the middle of the thing. You just have to stick to what's there.
but we see people on stage all the time that will something the other character will do will make them laugh,
Yeah.
and they'll try to stifle the laugh.
Yeah.
Well, now we see the actor. We see the actor denying an impulse
Right.
to laugh. But if you stay involved in the imaginary circumstances and you laugh at something, but you commit to it
Right.
in character, the audience will go with it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's a separation. I think it's impossible if you're working authentically. I think it's
Yeah.
impossible to separate the actor and the character.
Mm.
That you are the character and the character is you. There's not some mythical creature that you're stepping into that is the character. It's you. There's nobody else there.
Right.
So whatever happens to you is happening to the character. Therefore, if you're laughing, then the character is laughing because the audience saw it. Before you had a thought to suppress it, the
Mm.
audience saw the impulse for it.
Right.
So it's you go with it
Yeah.
and trust that if you commit to it, and I even when I have those occurrences happen to me as an actor, I even point at it. I go bigger.
Yeah.
I do. Unbelievable. I'll take it further
Yeah.
because it's I'm committing whatever experience I have to the life of the character. And I think that's a big mistake is yes, there are forms that you have to follow.
Mm.
You're singing in a show, you have to be able to sing the songs. And severe emotion is going to affect your ability to be able to sing.
Yeah.
And but not trying to squelch the emotion. Let the emotion take the moment,
Mm.
or live in it authentically within the form.
Right. No, and I
Um,
wish that I would have had those tools and that information, as a younger performer when I did Christine, for example, because like there's one specific scene that comes to mind. I don't know if you've seen Phantom of the Opera, but
I have
where
not.
no, so the Phantom has just murdered someone during an opera performance, and Christine gets really scared and runs up on the roof of the Paris Opera House, and her fiance or lover Raoul is following her up on the roof, and as Christine, you have this huge, huge dress on. It's very heavy and it's very difficult to move in. And this one performance, she's supposed to run around on this roof being quite frantic. And at one performance, I ran probably a little too fast and I stepped on the skirt and fell like face forward, just boom. And my reaction was, obviously laughing because it was really stupid. And it was really difficult to get up again from the floor in this huge dress. So I was down for, for me, it felt like hours. It probably was, a couple of seconds, but it was really horrible because I had to get back to him to start the duet, All I Ask of You. And I just feel like if I would have trained with you before that, even though she's scared and frantic, she could very well have laughed at herself. at that moment and allowed that to happen. But because I was like, oh, I can't laugh now, it became this whole big thing.
Even if you stay, she's running from him, correct?
Well, no, she's running from
She's frantic.
yeah, she's running from the murder scene downstairs. So she's not running from her boyfriend. He's just following her to calm her down, but she doesn't want to be calmed down.
So it makes logical sense that in that panicked state, she could easily fall down.
Yeah,
And she could easily, I mean, she can laugh at her own ridiculousness, her own. So I'm just supporting what you're saying. Yes,
right,
you can go with you can justify anything
right.
that happens to you within the imaginary circumstances.
Mm,
It's just staying committed,
right.
and not being afraid to go with what you feel is separate. Oh, this is the actor falling down, not the character falling down.
Right.
No, if you fell down, the character fell down. Therefore,
Yeah.
the character responds.
Yes.
And there is, you saw Les Mis, the film Les Mis, correct?
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman singing and Anne Hathaway singing, and Hugh Jackman in particular, he had one song where he was singing and he was breaking down emotionally, and it was causing his voice to crack, and he was singing through it, through all of the violent emotion, and it was stunning. Even though it wasn't, okay, I'm gonna push this down so I can sing perfectly. But it's a style. That was a style that they had chosen, and Anne Hathaway did the same thing, and there's snot coming down her face while she's singing for her child, and we have to adhere to the form or to the style that has been chosen to work within. But within that style, you can completely release and be authentic. And there's always an option. It's like I hear all the time for scenes that we're supposed to cry. And I've had this experience myself, is like, I will cry in a scene, and it will come out, and I will be a basket case. And then the director will say, cut, and we're okay, reset. Now I got to do it again. But I just released all that energy.
Yeah.
And the next time I come out and do the scene, I'm completely numb. But I commit to being numb. And that's a beautiful take, because any state of being that you're experiencing is the perfect state of being for any moment in any scene if you commit to it. Because from my experience, for me personally, if I lose it emotionally, if I cry in a scene, and the next 2 or 3 takes are going to be, they'll be different each one, but they're going to be pretty dry, because the well has to build back up, and then all of a sudden it'll come out again. If we get to that many takes. Because that's another thing. Actors are so afraid of being different. They're trying to hang on to a performance, trying to lock down a performance so they can deliver the same performance every night, have the same emotion at the same moments every night, or every take. And I think that's a death trap. I think it creates a stiffness. It creates a two-dimensional quality painting veneer over what you're feeling. Because even if you're feeling different things, you're delivering it the same. And I think it's a trap. I think that you can, on stage or off stage, allow it to live organically and fully every time you do it.
Yeah.
For me on film, every take is my rehearsal. Every take builds on the previous take. And I learn something each take, and I share, when I work with the director and I say, oh, I'm feeling this, and then he'll make suggestions, and we'll go, okay, let's try it again, and we'll go someplace different with it. I want to be able, every single take, be different and build upon whatever happened before. Because in the end, again, film is not about, the difference between stage and film is stage is a continuous action throughout the entire play, whereas film is a collection of moments.
Right.
And anything that you do, even though you're doing a whole scene, on on film,
Mm.
what you shoot on film will never show up on the screen, because it never what shows up on the screen never happened on when you were shooting it,
Mm.
because the editor is taking little tiny bits and pieces from all the different takes to
Right.
create the story they want to tell.
Yeah. So I have a question regarding that because
Hmm.
um, say you're shooting a film, and I mean, obviously, they don't shoot in chronological order usually. So, how much would you prepare and like would you prepare and have like an idea of the arc for this character or for this person, or is it more like, no, I work on every scene separately because there's still just moments in this person's life, so the story gets told by the editor and the audience watching anyway, like.
But you still have to provide the source material,
Right, right.
right?
So how do you go about that then? Do you make like a I don't know, like for musical theater, you make a show Bible where that's a bit different because that has a lot to do with, like blocking and stuff like that. But just like how much work do you put into like the whole arc of the character, and like, oh, in scene 5 I have these things to sort of um, think about, or do you know what I'm getting at?
Yes. um, I'm just thinking through my own process. Just like we do in the workshops,
Mm,
you come in, we have a 3-day workshop, and we're going to do the scenes that we're working on Sunday, right? But we never rehearse the scenes.
mm,
We build relationship. And for me, all in our process, all scenes are about a relationship. I don't work on character.
mm,
Doesn't mean the character doesn't happen and expand. I'm not building character. Um, it's like saying, well, I have to build Stephen. Well, no, Stephen emerges as a character based on my experiences as a human.
mm,
And that creates Stephen and choices you make along the way. So character is a byproduct of relationship.
mm,
So every scene, I go and explore the relationship. So, and in film, have to do all the homework on your own. You're not gonna interact with those actors till you show up on the set and do it.
mm,
And that's actually, if you're prepared, that's very exciting. But it is the preparation, meaning I'm going to spend the time building these relationships and understanding these relationships through my own exploration of, as you mentioned earlier, mostly monologuing and journaling.
mm,
When I monologue, I mean actually getting on my feet and improv monologuing out loud about anything I want to do or talk about
mm,
from my experience as a character, but based on a relationship.
mm,
The focus as a focal point for the process is look at the relationship. Don't look at character. Look at the relationship, and character will emerge from your exploration of relationship. So if I read the script many, 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 many times. So I'll read the whole script.
mm,
But when I get a script, I don't. As a young actor, we all did this. As a young actor, we get a script, and I'm, oh gosh, who am I auditioning for? I'm also auditioning for Tom. So I go through the script and I find all the Tom scenes, and then I read Tom scenes out loud as if I'm playing it, because we so desperately want to get to the performance,
mm,
because we so desperately want to be good, because we want to be accepted. So we want to get to that performance. But by doing that, you immediately start eliminating all sorts of possibilities and all sorts of creative choices. As an actor, my agent, I was with the same agent in Hollywood for, I don't know, 27, 28 years. And he knew not to tell me who I was auditioning for. He would just send me the script. He said, you have an audition tomorrow.
Mm.
So I would read the script so that I could be clean and I could just read it and let the author tell me the story and be immersed as if I were reading a novel. And then I would read the story and then I'd call my agent and go, okay, who am I reading for?
Mm-hmm.
So that I could go inside. So I try to read the script several times and let the let the author tell me the story, because each time I read it, I'm going to see new things
Mm.
that I didn't see before. And I'm going to have new inspirations and I'm going to let my being respond to the script. And I'm going to start to see a world that the author is creating, because that's the world I'm bringing to life.
Right.
So I want to be able to see it from the outside as long as I can before I have to go inside. Because once I'm inside, I can't see the big picture anymore. You don't want to see it objectively because now you're experiencing it inside of it. So I'm very familiar with all the scenes, and I will read them, but I will read them mostly for I'm looking for circumstance.
Mm.
I go back if I get lost. I'll do say some improving and I'm exploring and something doesn't make sense to me. Hmm. I'll go back and read the script again, read it again, see if anything comes at me. Maybe there's one word. It's like, why did I choose this? Why am I saying this word?
Mm.
And just, I can take that one word and do an improv out loud monologue for 5 minutes on that idea, why I would choose that word.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it from the inside, so I have the experience of it. So in building these relationships, I can do it solo because that's going to take me to a certain place that I'm going to feel alive in. And when I journal, it's the same thing. I will journal as the character
Right.
about relationship. And so, and journaling is not okay. I'm gonna write down, write a story, create a story. It's the same thing with backstory. People will do it intellectually, and
Mm.
that's a trap. They will go, okay, well, let's see. Let's say I was born here, and they'll write a story from their mind,
Mm.
as opposed to if you journal and you can take any given circumstance the author has given you, one sentence of a given circumstance. He grew up in Boston. That's in a stage direction. I take that one thing and start journaling about growing up in Boston. I don't know what I'm going to say. It
Mm.
comes out.
Mm.
We want to let our subconscious be the muse. The subconscious fills the pen when we're writing. And
Mm.
I always do it I don't do it anything digitally. It has to be written because it's physical. We feel it. It has to be in the body.
Mm.
So I'll write all sorts of let the journaling happen. It's as if I'm channeling the character.
Mm.
No thinking going on. And if it comes to an end and I'm brain dead, there's nothing coming out, then I'll just sit in it and wait for something else to come up.
Mm.
I'm never trying to make something happen. If I've come to the end of it and there's nothing there, great. We'll go on to another one. Take another Let It Be True, or
Mm.
another um, given circumstance. So I'm building these relationships, and I'm doing it by myself. I don't try to. First of all, in most scripts, most screenplays, even television's worse. Not worse. Television does this more. Is that you're getting new pages. Scripts constantly changing.
Mm.
It's not like, if I'm playing Hamlet, Hamlet's Hamlet forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
Screenplay is constantly being revised. I'm working with a woman right now who's shooting a film in Texas, and every 2 days she's got to send me a new script because it's been revised again and redrafted. And so,
Mm.
there's got to be 10 different drafts that we have worked on this script.
Mm.
Television, doing television, I get new pages every morning. Every morning, going in to shoot and get new pages. So with your dialogue constantly changing, and everybody's different. Anthony Hopkins, Anthony Hopkins memorizes the entire script right at the beginning and then adjusts to it as he gets new pages. But he's down cold before the shooting ever starts. And I see value in that. And it's important to be off book. I mean, you can't wing it. You know, if you're not off book on your lines, I don't care how you learn them. You know, I don't like to learn scenes more than a couple of days ahead of time before we're going to shoot them, because we're talking only 3 or 4 pages at the most. So it's not a lot of dialogue, and I don't want to be buried down with all of it. I want to just take it as it comes. But I know the story. I know the arc. I know where I'm coming from and where I'm going to. Because there's some place the scene is coming from, and there's some place the scene is going to. And I know that information. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to remind myself what the circumstances are. I know it. No different than that. You don't have to remind yourself that you're in acting class. You know you're in acting class. So you don't have to go, okay, where am I? Oh yeah, acting class. Okay, I got it. Don't want to forget that. But yet actors go, okay, what are my circumstances? And it's just fear.
Yeah.
So everybody has their own way of doing it, but you have to be off book. You can't be thinking about words, trying to find words, because you can't play.
Right.
Then, you in stage, you have a lot of time to really learn all that material, but you still have a director going, okay, people, I need you off book.
Yeah, yeah.
You need to be off book by Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because you can't go and play if you're worried about words. And if you're trying to find words or thinking about words while you're shooting a scene, all you're going to do is survive the scene. You're not going to be able to play in the scene.
Right.
Because your mind's now going to be involved. That your mind is going to be trying to find the words, remember the words. Was that the right word? Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, got it. You have all this noise going on in your head that's going to be looking at you, and you're going to be cut off from what's happening out in front of you.
Yeah.
Which is where the story lives. The story lives in that energy between people, between environments. So you got to be off book. But I guess what I'm trying to wrap it all up, I don't know if I've ever said it like this, but I do all my homework. And when I get to the set, I'm off book. And the director is then going to give me more input, and it's going to make adjustments. But when I have a base, a foundation of who I am and in these relationships, then I have something very solid to push off of if the director gives me a new way to go. If I come through like, we'll just see where it goes, and haven't done my work, then it's muddy, right, and everything comes out general. But if I have something very specific to push off of, it's very easy to make adjustments and to flow with it. Then you get on the set with the actors, and now you're bringing all your knowledge, and you have to trust it's there. Because once you start shooting, all the homework has to go out the window.
Right.
I have this image of driving in the car, rolling window down, picking up the homework off the seat, and throwing it out the window. And it just goes in the distance, because I have to trust that it's in there.
Yeah.
And what's going to stick is going to stick. And I'm constantly building new Let It Be Trues anyway, so it's going to constantly be growing and changing. Again, I'm not trying to get to an end product, a performance. It never ends. Even if we continue playing with it after the shooting is over, it would turn into new things.
Right.
There is no definitive performance of anything. There's actually schools of thought. It drives me nuts. Schools that teach, they'll study a film in the way that they'll look at the way Brando did Streetcar Named Desire. And then they'll teach it, and you'll do the scenes from it. And if you don't do the scene the way they did it in the film, then you're doing the scene wrong. And it's ridiculous, because the scene that was shot, first of all, what's on the screen never actually took place in the first place. It's a collection of moments. And secondly, who knows how many takes they made of that one moment that they chose this moment.
Right.
So how could it possibly be the right way? There is no right way.
No.
But it's something actors want to hang on to. There's got to be a right way, because I want to get it right, because I want to be loved. I want to be liked. I want to be accepted.
Yeah.
And we have to be willing to be the fool. We have to be willing to be who we are.
Right.
that authenticity will be rewarded and appreciated more than anything else in the end. There was something I wanted to read to you.
Okay.
You know me and my quotes.
Yes.
Okay. And I thought of this when we started talking about just this subject. And I'll let you see if you can guess who it is.
Oh God. Okay.
I don't think there are any rules. Each movie tells you what it wants. I try not to make rules about the character. I don't know what the fuck they do. I do things all the time that are out of character. What does that even mean, in character? You do all this research and you just start taking things that you think are important. That's what research is for me. It arms me to say that this is mine now. I like to have a lot of options available, then make a choice in the moment. The best moments are when I'm not making conscious decisions. If I go on set and try to consciously do one of the ideas that I have had, it's always really bad without fail. I'm trying more and more just to really have all these possibilities available, but not make any kind of decision until I'm in the experience. Any ideas?
I don't know. Meryl Streep.
Could be, very much so. She works that way.
Yeah.
It's Joaquin Phoenix.
Ah. Yeah.
And there, if you want to see someone who's always authentic on screen, it's Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
They're never a false moment.
No, that's very true.
So I think that's how I prepare, so that when I am with, the exciting part is if I know I'm prepared and I let go of it, I trust it. Now it's going to be a whole new journey, because preparation is only the place where you jump off the cliff.
Right.
When you start shooting, it's going to go completely new directions that you never thought of, never planned, because you have all this new influence coming in to add to what you've done. Your preparation is just a place not to lock down a performance. It's a preparation to jump off the cliff into letting a performance happen. Because now you're going to get all this information from the other actor, all these new things you never thought the other character would be doing. The relationship is going to grow and change.
Yeah. That's really, really wise words. And I mean, we could probably talk for another 10 hours, but it would be a very, very long TOCCA Talks. And so I'm going to have to round this up for now. And
Good.
hopefully I can have you back and talk about, other things, because there's obviously so much to explore and talk about when it comes to acting. And if you want to read more about Stephen and Actorswork, and maybe even take part in an online workshop, or, we've been trying to get you to Sweden for a while now, but then COVID happened and there's been things happening. But then, I would suggest that you all come and do these workshops, because it's life-changing in so many ways. So thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, darling, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks.
It's so good to see you again.